Hi, for this activity, we're going to be reading a story called Faithful Elephants, a true story of animals, people, and war. It's by Yukio Tsuchiya. Before we begin, there's a few questions I would like you to think about while we read it. First of all, what kind of animals were at the zoo? Second, why were the animals forced to be put down? And third, what connections can you make from this text to historical events in the 20th century? And we'll begin. The cherry blossoms are in full bloom at the Uno Zoo. The petals are falling on the soft breeze and sparkling in the sun. Beneath the cherry trees, crowds of people are pushing to enter the zoo on such a beautiful day. Not far from the cheerful square, there stands a tombstone. Not many notice this monument for the animals that have died at the Uno Zoo. It is quiet and peaceful there, and the sun warms every corner. One day, an employee of the zoo, while tenderly polishing a stone, told me a sad story of 3 elephants buried there. Today, he said, there are 3 elephants in the zoo, but years ago we had 3 different elephants here. Their names were John, Tonki, and Wanli. At that time, Japan was at war. Gradually, the war had become more and more severe. Bombs were dropped on Tokyo every day and night, like falling rain. What would happen if bombs hit the zoo? If the cages were broken and dangerous animals escaped to run wild through the city? It would be terrible. Therefore, by command of the army, all of lions, tigers, leopards, bears, and big snakes were poisoned to death. By and by, it came time for 3 elephants to be killed. They began with John. John loved potatoes, so the elephant keepers mixed poisoned potatoes with the good ones when it was time to feed him. John, however, was a very clever elephant. He ate the good potatoes, but each time he brought a poisoned potato to his mouth with his trunk, he threw it to the ground. Kerplunk. As it seems there is no other way, the zookeeper said, we must inject poison directly in his body. A large syringe, the kind used to give shots to horses, was prepared, but John's skin was so tough that the big needles broke off with a loud snap, after one and another. When this did not work, the keepers reluctantly decided to starve him to death. Poor John died 17 days later. Then it was Tonki and Wanli's turns to die. These 2 had always gazed at people with loving eyes. They were sweet and gentle-hearted. The zookeepers wanted so much to keep Tonki and Wanli alive that they thought of sending them to the zoo in Sendai, not far from Tokyo. But what if bombs fell on Sendai? What if the elephants got loose and ran wild there? What would happen then? Tonki and Wanli, too, were doomed to be killed at the Uno Zoo, just like all of the other animals. The elephant keepers stopped feeding Tonki and Wanli. As the days passed, the elephants became thinner and thinner, weaker and weaker. Whenever a keeper walked by the cage, they would stand up, tottering as if to beg, give us something to eat. Please, give us water. Their small, loving eyes began to look like round rubber balls in their drooping, shrunken faces. Their ears seemed too large for their bodies. The once big, strong elephants became sad shape. All this while, the elephant trainer loved them as if they were his own children. He could only pace in front of the cage and moan, you poor, poor, pitiful elephants. One day, Tonki and Wanli lifted their heavy bodies, staggered to their feet, and came close to their trainer. Squeezing out little strength they had left, Tonki and Wanli made their appeal. They stood on their hind legs and lifted their front legs up as high as they could. Then, raising their trunks high in the air, they did their bonsai trick. Surely their friend would reward them with food and water as he used to do. The trainer could not stand it any longer. "Oh, Tonki, oh, Wanli," he wailed, and dashed to the food shed. He carried food and pails of water to them and threw it at their feet. "Here," he said, sobbing, and clung to the thin legs. "Eat your food, please. Drink your water." All of the other keepers pretended not to see what the trainer had done. No one had said a word. The director of the zoo just sat there very still, biting his lip and gazing at the top of his desk. No one was supposed to give the elephants any food. No one was supposed to give them any water. But everyone was hoping and praying that if the elephants could survive only one more day, that the war might be over and the elephants could be saved. At last, Tonky and Wanley could no longer move. They just lay on their sides, hardly able to see the white clouds floating in the sky over the zoo. However, their eyes appeared clearer and more beautiful than ever. Seeing his beloved elephants dying this way, the elephant trainer felt as if his heart would break. He had no more courage to see them. All the other keepers felt the same way, and they too stayed away from the elephant's cage. Over 2 weeks later, Tonky and Wanley were dead. Both died leaning against the bars of their cage with their trunks stretched high in the air, still trying to do their bonsai trick for the people who once fed them. "The elephants are dead! They're dead!" screamed the elephant trainer as he ran into the office. He buried his head in the arms and cried, beating his desk with the top of his fist. The rest of the zookeepers ran to the elephant's cage and stumbled in. They took hold of Tonky and Wanley's thin bodies, as if to shake them back to life. Everyone burst into tears, then stroked the elephant's legs and trunks in sorrow. Above them, in the bright blue sky, the angry roar of enemy planes returned. Bombs began to drop on Tokyo once more. Still clinging to the elephants, the zookeeper raised their fist to the sky and implored, "Stop the war! Stop the war! Stop all wars!" Later, when the bodies of the elephants were examined, nothing was found in their washtub-like stomachs, not even one drop of water. With tears in his eyes, the zookeeper finished his story. These 3 elephants, John, Tonky, and Wanley, are now resting peacefully under this monument. He was still patting the tombstone tenderly as the cherry blossoms fell in the grave, like snowflakes. And that is the end of the story. For class next time, I would like you to think about the story and bring up any discussion points you would like to talk about, any initial ideas or questions you may have that arose from reading this, and along with the 3 questions that I asked you to guide you through the podcast, I'd like you to form some of your own questions that you could ask future readers that would read this story. Thank you.